The COVID-19 pandemic has brought us a lot of negative impacts, one of which is infodemics, referred to as second sickness by the World Health Organization. As science journalists, how do we handle this challenge, and are we prepared for future pandemics? On this episode, we are going to talk about fighting infodemics through science journalism with an award-winning science journalist from Zambia. We are going for a quick break. When we come back, I'll properly introduce to you who our guest is and then start with the discussion. My name is Isabella Teta Hinakwa. Please stay tuned. You're welcome back from the break. This is the COVID-19 Diary, an initiative brought to you by the Association of African Universities in partnership with the National Research Foundation South Africa. And as I said earlier, today we are going to talk about fighting infodemics through science journalism with an award-winning science journalist from Zambia. She goes with the name Jubiel Zulu, and she's here with us via Zoom to talk on this topic. Hello, Miss Jubiel.
Hello, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you doing too?
I'm good, thank you.
Great. You're welcome to the COVID-19 Diary.
It's a pleasure.
Sure. Now, I've already introduced you to our viewers, but then I would like you to briefly tell us more about yourself, in case I left something.
Okay, so I'm a health science journalist. I'm mostly biased with health issues and gender issues. I'm also a journalist working in Zambia. Apart from that, I also do consultants with other media-related issues. So I think that's basically what I can say. It's just that I have a little bit, actually I'm growing in the profession of journalism, as I have spent at least 10 years in my journalism profession.
Sure. Now let's start with today's discussion. Let's start with the ethics of science journalism. You know, to be a professional journalist, you need to adhere with the ethics of journalism, which includes your information being truth and accurate, you being accountable for your information, you being fair and impartial. Now, I want to know if these principles applies to science journalism or if there is more to it.
Well, that applies to science journalism and more to what you've actually put across. Science journalism requires that you have a direct attention to specific bodies of knowledge. You also need to have a topic at hand. Science communication has to do with a subject matter that you'd want the public to understand and also to adhere to. It goes in depthly with what you want to discuss. And apart from that, we are discoveries. We act on discoveries. We act on the truth that is found on science and what other people think about, so that we are able to tell the difference and that we come to a conclusion of what really people should understand. And then apart from accuracy in reporting, it requires journalists to be accurate and is expected for them to give their time frame in terms of how you're going to handle a certain matter at hand. For instance, we're talking about COVID-19, which started in 2019. That's why it's called COVID-19. When we're talking about it, obviously there's supposed to be a subject that you would want to have. It's not everything that you're going to tackle. You're supposed to come up with something that requires more information. And apart from that, I always say that it has to do with verification. You start with verification of the subject, verification of the data that you require, verification of everything. Before you are about to disseminate that information, you still need to go back again, verify, is the information that you're supposed to give the public credible or accurate, or is it that you're missing the point? And also, it has got harm limitation principles, which also requires journalists weighing off what the public needs in terms of the information and also the potential harm of making such kind of an information? Is
Information,
it that
yeah.
you want to bring change? Yeah. Is it that we want to bring change? Or is it that you're talking about something that people need to understand and also come to a conclusion for them to participate and make informed decisions?
Exactly. Now let's
Yeah.
go to reporting during pandemics. You know, especially at the early stage of the COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of the journalists wanted to prove they have information first, and then they go
Yeah.
back, like this information turned out to be misinformation or disinformation. Now, using your experience as a science journalist, how were you reporting throughout the pandemic?
Well, when this pandemic came into place, there was no much information, even on internet, about it. So which means that it required more people to come up with internet-based research. Exactly. And also post some of the things that they've been able to do. And for me, I saw that there was a lot of journalists that was coming along, to report about this pandemic. But then again, there was one thing that was lacking. Yes, you can report about a certain pandemic, but how well are you acquainted with that subject? And what are you supposed to do in order to ensure or to grow the people so that they understand? So there were some components. Of course, COVID-19 is a learning ground, even for researchers right now. They're still learning, even for journalists ourselves, we are still learning. So it requires that, it requires that we understand first what the pandemic is all about. What is the information that is peddled in the community? And of course, you and I know that during the first few months of having this COVID-19, we had a lot of misinformation that was peddled on social media and everyone. So it required that journalists do much work to sensitize the public. And I think in my country, I saw that a number of media stations were coming up with different programs, and also on their news articles where they needed to just write a sentence on COVID-19, on how it is prevented. And I think that has continued in my country. Of course, I also see how other countries are handling the case. But for me, as an experience, what I have noticed is that I continue learning. And each time that I interact with experts, it gives me an idea of certain issues on how we can actually provide more information on a certain topic. In the past, of course, we're just hearing about COVID-19 and the symptoms and the likes. But this time around, we're talking about, diseases that are associated with COVID-19. Or what variants. That maybe, for instance, we're talking about stroke that is associated with COVID-19. And apart from that, we are also talking about a number of measures that governments have been able to put in place to ensure that people are vaccinated. Apart from that, also how this research were actually done, away from the way research have been done in the past, where some of the research is not, takes years for them to actually come to a conclusion. So it all starts from all of us to get to understand. And I think it's a learning process for almost all of us as journalists to say that we don't have to venture into anything if we don't really understand. We need to ensure that people that have got vast knowledge can ensure that they continue with the process, but then again, share knowledge amongst ourselves as journalists, even in newsrooms. It is now time for us to have programs that we can do in-house training and share the knowledge that we have as personal science journalists.
Sure. Now, at the early stage of the pandemic, there were a lot of information, some being misinformation and some being disinformation. What is the difference between misinformation and then disinformation?
Well, when it comes to misinformation, for me, I take it as inaccurate information that is actually mistakenly or inadvertently spread, generally with mistakes, that are unintentional, and it is mostly not verified. So you might have a click of some information, but because it is not verified and because it lacks important information that you are supposed to put out, then you just spread it, he disseminate it.
Yeah.
That is misinformation.
Misinformation.
Disinformation is totally different from misinformation, because disinformation is false information, which is intended to, one, mislead, especially when it comes to propaganda, which is deliberately spread, that is to deceive people, discredit a person or an organization, and influence the public opinion. So it deliberately deprives, manipulates, and ensures that it is all fake, That's how I distinguish the two.
All right, that's really, really good. Now, moving on to the impacts or the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic on journalism. It was unexpected and really, really fast. Some being we working from home, some being we using new tools and new platforms to report, and even social distancing whilst reporting. Now, what were some of the challenges you faced during the pandemic?
Well, I think some of them have really touched on them, but away from what I have touched on, I can say that the stories that were actually gathered, mostly some of them were not really well researched.
Okay.
Would just say that sometimes you would base your argumentation because of what government has said. So apart from that, also there was more work, or there's still more work that is given to the journalists because of fake news, misinformation that is peddled, and the myths that we do have surrounding the pandemic. It is not only about the COVID-19 pandemic, but also other pandemics. So it is now giving more work to the journalists to counter-react on some of the things that are peddled on social media. And also what I've seen and also heard from my friends who are journalists is that the pandemic has actually made some journalists suffer through pay cuts, lost revenues. There has been some cancelled commissions, and also worsening working conditions. So there are some who have gone not paid for at least 3 months and above, because these media institutions are not able to make money as they're supposed to make. And also when it comes to traveling, I know that as journalists, we actually are more prone to travel, especially when it comes to fellowships. So there are some fellowships that have been cut down. Apart from that, we're also looking at some fellowships that have just gone now to be doing online fellowships, rather than people traveling out and physically meeting. And I think that has a little bit impacted on some of the networking that we usually do. Of course, physical is always preferred than online because of some of the issues that do occur, technology and all that. So that has really impacted our timing. And then speaking also from my personal experience. We are talking about structures that have been changing in newsrooms. So you find that sometimes instead of working as a whole, the newsroom that you have to cut into groups so that you adhere to the COVID-19 pandemic measures. You look at maybe if you are 12 in a whole as a media station, you have to cut it into 2 parts. But that in effect has made journalists to work more and more, so that they are able to cater for those that are not working on that day. So that has continued, and I think it is mostly interchangeable when it comes to if the COVID-19 cases rise, or they are able to just maintain it. So it fluctuates just like that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we are going to go for a quick break. When we come back, we are going to move into infodemics. You're welcome back from the break. This is the COVID-19 Diary on AAU TV. It is brought to you by the Association of African Universities in partnership with the National Research Foundation, South Africa. If you just join, you can follow this discussion on our social media handles as Association of African Universities on Facebook and YouTube. With me here via Zoom is Miss Jubiel Zulu from Zambia. She is an award-winning science journalist. Now, Miss Jubiel, you're welcome from the break. Now
Thank you so much.
Sure, let's delve into infodemics. You know, when we talk about infodemics, we are talking about information overloads, right? And this was experienced during the pandemic. How was this a challenge to you and your colleagues?
Well, when, like you have said it, infodemics has to do with an abundance of information.
Exactly.
Be it true, be it inaccurate, and so on and so forth. But then again, it also has to do with now a journalist trying to find trustworthy sources,
Exactly.
reliable guidance when it is needed. It also caused that there's information that is fully available when it comes to counter-reacting on some of these challenges that we've talked about. Now, like I said that when COVID-19 started, we had let me just say, we didn't have enough information on COVID-19. So that gave rise to misinformation, to disinformation. Anybody can post about COVID-19. But then again, for me, I took it as a challenge to now get more acquainted with what the other society was. As Zambia, we were also learning on how COVID-19 was. And some of the challenges that people had actually imposed was that Zambia did not participate in the coming up of the vaccine. But unfortunately, I got to find out to say Zambia and other countries were actually participating in these COVID-19 vaccines.
Wow.
So it only took others to also get to understand where we're coming from and some of the challenges, some of the information that is actually availed to us. So it provided me a chance to now understand from both the perspective of just humans, individuals, ordinary Zambians, and also what some ordinary people from other countries were also thinking about, because I was interchanging with this information. And I remember I have been doing a lot of programs, a lot of information that has to do with inter-countries, Zambia, Malawi, Lesotho, and any other, which I have friends that can connect and contact me on various issues. So it gave me a reward to understand how things were from other countries and how I should chip in as a journalist from Zambia, working together with government and also experts. And I think I came to now understand that we don't only have the Minister of Information that can deliver this information on COVID-19, but also other people that can deliver this information. For instance, I'm talking about the Science Cafe that I also belong to, that we talk about scientific issues regarding the pandemic, regarding whatever subject we can talk about, even HIV inclusive. We use that podium to bring in experts that can talk to us on various issues, on various pandemics and how we should treat them. And each time that I am in that meeting, I learn a lot. I learn different stuffs on every moment I am able to spend on the platform.
Yeah. Now, aside you trying your best to fight infodemics and to bring out the accurate information, what were some of the responses from the government and then some media houses in fighting infodemics?
Well, I think in the very start, it was very difficult because not everyone can speak about COVID-19. So the only person that was mandated to speak about it was the minister. This is because they wanted to fight this misinformation and also people not to get just any other information from other sources. But what I found out is that for me, I went an extra mile in engaging some of the research organizations that are in our country. And I think I found it very beneficial because they were sharing their experiences on the issue of the pandemic. But not everyone can have such kind of an opportunity. This is why I'm still thinking that it is very vital for more people to come on board and ensure that we offer this information. But then again, this information can also trickle down to the ordinary people by using their local language. In the case of Zambia, we know that not most of our people can understand English. And, science deals with specific words that can be used, specific information that can be given using their own technology, using their own way of communicating. So it now imposes a question on a journalist on how best they can interpret that information scientifically to the people. So they also need to work hand in hand with the journalist to just ensure that that information is interpreted for a mere person to really understand before anything else.
Yeah, sure. Now, how about the media houses? What were they doing to fight infodemics?
Well, I saw that media houses, most of the times, like I also put it, was to come up with some programs that were talking about COVID-19. And apart from that, their news articles, I've continued seeing that most of them are still putting a line, either on the first, before they start reading their news, or as they are ending their news, where they put a line on COVID-19 and how they should prevent themselves. And I think that's a very good start. But then again, when you look at these media stations, they're also in a business sphere. So they have to look at how best can government can also come up with some programs that can help them have adverts, that can help them have programs that are sponsored by government. So it's a two-way thing. They are also doing their utmost to just ensure that they talk about this information. And I think with journalists who have been actually talking about COVID-19, we have gone extra mile to even involve the public themselves to know what they understand from the time that COVID-19 started up until today. So those kind of information have continued to actually be broadcasted in our media stations.
Great. Yeah. Now, still on fighting infodemics, the introduction of digital platforms and then social media enables everybody to post information without being checked on. And then this has come to stay. It's never going away. How can we as science journalists evaluate and then assess the quality of a research finding that has been published online? And then how can we infuse the online platforms as a reliable source for information?
Okay, so what I have done deliberately is I know the type of people that I interact with on social media, that is Facebook and Twitter. So there was a time that, like, I still continue doing that, where I start luring people to actually look at a certain article that I've written, be it a boyfriend and girlfriend article, but inside it, I'll put very, very cardinal information that talks about the pandemic. And since somebody was already lured to read about that article, they will be able to read what I have written on COVID-19. And I think it is working, because I know I've noticed that there's a number of people that call me afterwards. How can you do this? And I'm like, oh, it's very important. But then again, I work on that. What I've noticed also is that there are some times when I go through some journals, that talk about various information, and I look at first how they are ranked, and the information that they give out, the data analysis, the citation that they've given, and everything that is written, for me, the scientific data that they have actually given. So I will have to analyze it. Is it worth it for me to follow it up? And is it the information that I can give the public? How are they going to perceive it? So that really helps me to actually understand if really the information I'm getting for all these research that we have done is important. But away from that, I also I've also put it a goal to say that most of the times if I come across something, I need to verify with the relevant expertise. So be it a research, that is online. I know, yes, there might be some information here and there, but then again, I need to verify. So there are times when I just contact the people that are on that same the same journals. There are some emails that are written and everything. So I get in contact with them and confirm that it is really their piece of writing, so that whenever I'm able to get that information to the public, I know that it is really of good value and it is accurate.
Yeah. Now, aside verifying information, to make sure that it is accurate, it is true, and it is the fact. To me, I think at least there should be some policies. Before you post something outside, there should be some policy. If it's not the truth, it should be blocked, or it should be, disconnected from the platform. What would you recommend as a regulatory policy for digital platforms or social media?
Well, a decade ago, we were talking about social media that appeared as a golden age and citizen journalism. Everyone jumped on it. But the result is that right now, it's an agency that needs, people's attention, and not only people, but also the governments, because it borders on now human interests, it borders on everything. And it has got the potential to either ensure that the people get accurate information, or can bring a country into disrepute or chaos. So for me, I know that we have, like Zambia, we have some regulatory bodies and also acts, the laws that talk about how we should act, or how we should actually peddle information on social media. But I feel that most of the times it has to do with hate speech. Most of the times has to do with information that is maybe shared as a propaganda. But I feel that we need to go an extra mile to engage the citizens themselves, because it's not only us as the media that are found on social media. And remember, social media is free for everyone. So media who are traditional can also use social media. But the issue lies within the community. I think this is now high time to also get to have sensitization programs that can talk about media, social media, the use of information and how it is supposed to be peddled. Of course, I know that there are some countries that are regulating how information is peddled on social media. Here in Zambia, it is all free for anyone, and you're only, maybe you'll be arrested if you are found wanting, if you've peddled information that is not according to the laws. So that is a best way we can go about. But I really emphasize on the need to sensitize the public. Let's go flat out and sensitize them on the kind of information that they need to peddle, and also make them understand that information, yes, can be shared, but we also need to verify. And if you're not able to verify, contact journalists. We are always there as people that are well informed, people that can quickly get in touch with expertise and give you the information that you need.
Now, based on my observation, comparing fake news and then the accurate or fact, in terms of sharing to the people, we can see that fake news kind of gain more popularity or gain more publicity more than the facts. Now, how can we as science journalists make sure that our facts is seen?
Well, that's true. I always say that even in our country, when you talk about irrelevant issues, Eshman, you get a lot of
views,
but different from something that is serious. But I think there's time for us now to look at innovative ways in which we can share information. There are some people that currently are making it so big in our country and also other countries by making memes, by making drawing portraits, information, and they will just draw a person and the information that is coming along. That is in a sense just giving you information. So why don't we involve such kind of people that can give out such kind of information on issues to do with health, on issues to do with science. I think that can also help us. Apart from that, I think I was talking to some of the researchers in our country when we had a certain meeting within journalists and researchers, where I said that most of the times as researchers, we don't get to hear more from you, you know, and this is because the information that you get, you always gather it, have all this data, but then again, it's not shared with the media. But you must also understand that the media has got a role to play in your research, because if you do a research, imagine, and you just keep it without people getting to know what research you have done, then it means it's not serving any purpose. So we need to come to a fair playing ground where we can trust each other, the media and the scientists, the researchers. Let's get to a point where we can give information for the media to also get that information. It's not every scientific information that the media can actually give, but let them understand what the research, what the scientific information you want to give the people is, so that they can also help. That way, I think almost every one of us can be on the same page.
Now, to conclude this discussion, I want to ask, as you said, we are still in the learning process. We are learning. I want to ask, are we science journalists ready for future pandemics? Or should, in case it happens, we are going to be facing challenges, previous challenges that we've been facing? I want to know, are we prepared for future pandemics?
If we are to say that we are prepared, then that is wrong. But what I can say, is that since we are in the learning ground, can we build up support upon ourselves? Let's create this network. I like what you're doing as AAU. Let's create this rapport, this network where we can talk about issues that are affecting us, not only on COVID-19, but also other pandemics, so that we can see how best we can actually create a roadmap as science journalists when it comes to these pandemics. That is very important.
Sure. Thank you very much, Miss Jubiel. We are very privileged to have you here to talk on fighting infodemics through science journalism. We hope to have you on board on our next discussion.
Thank you so much.
This brings us to the end of today's discussion, where we talked about fighting infodemics through science journalism with an award-winning science journalist from Zambia. She goes by the name Miss Jubiel Zulu. According to her, we science journalists should come together and work as a group in order to fight infodemics. We are here to interpret to you what researchers have to say about the COVID-19 pandemic and other infectious diseases. I am Isabella Tetahinakwa, hoping to see you again on the COVID-19 Diary. Bye.